Starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey there, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us for today's first session. I very much appreciate you taking the time. I know many of you are joining us from in the middle of the night, from where you are all around the world, especially in Asia Pacific. Thank you so much. I can see quite a few coaches that I recognize the names of joining us. Andrew and Angela, I know for a fact that you're joining us from very, very late in the night, so thanks a lot. Um, Before I do anything, can I just please ask that you just let me know that you can hear me loud and clear by raising your hand in the air, or typing into the chat box. I can hear you. Either or is fine. Okay, brilliant. Okay, I can see lots of hands going up. Okay, thank you very much. I'll put those down now. Okie doke. Now, today we have a super fantastic session by Karen Kimsey House and Ann Betts on the power of expectations. We would love to hear your feedback on the session as we are going and also afterwards. And as always, that will be made, and you can do this either in the chat box, but preferably on our Facebook wall, which is facebook.com/WBECS. So WBEX, facebook.com/WBEX. And you can just post comments, post questions, anything at all there. We're going to do our best to have some question time at the end. Karen and Anne will aim to get their session done within the 30 minutes, and then we'll probably take a few questions after that. That's right, everyone. Now, if there are any challenges at all, please just let us know again in the question box, and we will address those as soon as you type them in. Okie doke. So, let me now introduce you to our two fantastic speakers. First of all, we have Ann Betts, who's the co-founder of Be Above Leadership and is a CTI faculty and neuroscience consultant. Anne is the co-founder of Be Above Leadership and an international speaker and trainer on the intersection of neuroscience, coaching, and human transformation. Anne serves as the neuroscience consultant to the Coaches Training Institute and is popular author on coaching and the brain, as a contributor to Choice Magazine, Coaching at Work, and other coaching and HR publications. Anne and Karen Kimsey House are co-authoring a book for publication later in 2013, something to very much look forward to, with the working title being Coactive, the Power of Integration on Life and Leadership. Karen Kimsey House founded the CTI in 1992 with Laura Whitworth and Henry Kimsey House. They created the co-active philosophy of relationship that informs CTI's world-renowned coaching and leadership programs. She's also a blogger for the Huffington Post and the co-author of Coactive Coaching, the best-selling industry Bible, now in its third edition. A very popular book. I know many of you have got that. She's a successful entrepreneur, and Karen founded and directed the Learning Annex San Francisco adult education program in 1986 and grew it into one of the most admired programs under the National Learning Annex brand. Karen continues to lead CTI workshops and is a dynamic keynote speaker around the world. It's my great pleasure to hand over to Anne. Oh, Karen. It's over to Karen.
And Anne. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us. I know it's late for some of you and early for others. Very, very early and very, very late. So we're pleased to have you with us. This is Karen Kimsey House, just so you get used to the sound of my voice. And co-leading with me will also be Ann Betts. Ann, you want to just say hi to the audience so they get used to the sound of your voice a little bit?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be here.
So our presentation today really has you as coaches start looking at the impact of the expectation and the context within which you hold the client in the coaching. Most of coaching, certainly coactive coaching, really rises from a fundamental belief that people are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. They're not broken, they don't need to be fixed. And in my experience, this creates a large part of the impact and the power of coaching. So I want to talk to you a little bit today about the power of your expectations. Not that you shouldn't have them, but to be aware of what they create for you and how to have them really work in your favor.
I love the way you said that about having them work in your favor, because as we really were looking at this for the webinar, we found that there was there's sort of a paradox. There's a place where expectations, even as a coach, can really um, limit things if we start having assumptions about our client. And then there's a place where our expectations can actually call out the best in our clients. So we want to play with paradox today.
So you'll see on the screen that there are three key components that we'll be talking about today: expectations and perception, expectations and performance, and paradox, challenge, and coaching. Anything you want to say about that, Anne, before I move on?
Yeah, no, I think that's really the, as I was saying before, kind of the fun part, that there's a bit of a paradox here, and we're going to play and hopefully have a little bit of time for questions at the end. So, cool. Let's, I think that maybe the best thing to do, Karen, is just jump into the next slide, which is the video. So hopefully you all around the world will be able to see this. If not, Ben has the link, and I know it's going to be able to be sharing that in some way. There you go. So just take a look at this video. It's only 2 minutes. For those of you who have trouble with your streaming, just be aware it's only 2 minutes. And for everyone else, we'll watch it, and then we'll talk about it when it's over. Can you get it to go?
Yeah, I can. I was waiting for you to.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
There we go. All right, here we go. So,
Go ahead, Karen.
The first time I saw that, I was so proud of myself because I saw the gorilla. And I missed the curtain, and I missed the person leaving the stage completely.
I did as well, and I have used, and many of you may have already seen, there's an original, the original clip is the Invisible Gorilla, and if you go on YouTube and Google the Invisible Gorilla, you can find the original one where the gorilla comes out, and you don't see it mostly if you're not expecting it. Most people don't see it, and so
and there's another great experiment that I read about someplace. Someone rushes into a classroom with a burglar mask on, and he holds up the teacher in front of the classroom, and he takes her purse and rushes out of the room. And after the event, the students were interviewed about what happened, and the person who rushed into the room was carrying everything from a submachine gun to a pistol. And actually, he wound up holding up the teacher with a banana. He had a banana clearly visible in his hand. So really, the point of all of this is that we do have expectations. I love this quote here by Daniel Simons. Only when forced to confront what we're missing do we realize that we've unwittingly made assumptions. So again, the point is not not to make assumptions and not to have expectations, but to know that we have them, to be aware that we have them, and to point them for maximum impact. I think we've lost Anne somewhere, so I'm going to just continue on with the webinar and hope she'll be joining us soon. So on the one hand, if we get too focused on what we see as possible, we may get attached to our own agenda. So when you're coaching, if you get too focused on the outcome or the result that you're hoping to produce for your clients, there's a really good possibility, not that you'll get attached to your own agenda as much, but that you'll start trying to make those results and those outcomes happen. And you'll miss so much of what happens in the moment with the client and miss so much of what the client is bringing forward to you. Here's a quote that kind of illustrates that point. I became a good student partly because my teachers expected me to do well. My parents expected me to do well, and so I expected to do well. By Chris Beredick, author of Mind Over Mind. So that sort of illustrates the point that we're making. Expectations do create the impact of our coaching, the impact of our listening. And I know with naturally creative, resourceful, and whole, which is sort of the foundational coaching assumption that we're talking about here today, in so much of my experience, who came to be coached, who came to the conversation was different because I coached them through that lens. I had some experience several years ago working inside the prison system here in the United States. And I had an opportunity to work with 26 men to take them all the way through our entire curriculum from the beginning course actually all the way through certification. 5 of them sat for their certification exam and 3 of them passed. And in the beginning, it was very challenging because these men knew they were not naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. They'd been told that all their life. They were told that they were behavioral problems as children, and then they were juvenile delinquents, and then they became criminals. So as we actually reinforced the idea that they had done bad things, a lot of bad things. They had committed many crimes. I don't even know what the crimes were that they committed. And yet, at the center of them, at the core of them, they were naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. That's who began to come to the courses. The ones within them that were naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. Now, I don't harbor any illusions that a lot of the behavioral addiction and other issues and problems that these men faced disappeared. But certainly, the people that we worked with in our program were able to accomplish much, much more than anyone had anticipated they would, anybody but us, because we expected them to be naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. So if you want your clients to come forward and be powerful and to reach for goals and to be really, really as fully expressed as they can be, hold that lens, hold that expectation, and be surprised when they are different rather than surprised when they move beyond it. On the other hand, as coaches, we tend to look for and see the best in people. What we focus on is what is possible for people, and they often rise to the occasion. So really the challenge of coaching, really powerful coaching, is to hold both, to really hold an open space where anything can emerge, as well as the possibilities we see that the client might not. Now, of course, that's what we do as coaches. That sounds really obvious, but actually it's more challenging than one might think. I know for myself that I find that integration is an artful place, and I'm often, on one side or the other. I'm either, really, really getting committed to the possibilities that I see for the client, and I'm pushing forward there, and I've left my client behind. Or I'm a little bit too passive in my coaching, and I'm holding the space for whatever wants to arise. And I find it most helpful just to hold a frame of being in the dance between those two things, between that sort of space for whatever is possible that emerges right in the moment, that open space where anything can emerge, and also the commitment to where we're going to go, which is really the magic, I think, of co-active. Co being about relationship, connection, possibilities, being present in the moment. Active really being about, intention and purpose and accomplishment and results, and sort of pressing forward with, beyond our boundaries. And the hyphen being really about paradox in the dance between the two things. Co, hyphen, active. So, of course, masterful coaches hold their clients as naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. And they also understand this dance between those two different paradoxes, between the space of possibility and the intention of expectation and accomplishment, and are able to move fluidly between the two without getting too encamped on any one side or the other. It's not actually about going directly at it. It's about the back and forth between the two. I read once that when a plane is flying from San Francisco to Los Angeles, the plane is off course 97% of the time. So the pilot is off course correct, off course correct, off course correct, off course correct. I think that's sort of the same way with coaching. If we're right on track all the time, then the coaching has to become rigid and inflexible, and it can't really give itself to this dance, to this back and forth of co and active. So I'd love to hear questions that you have and take some questions from you and respond to them. How is this hitting you? What do you see as the sort of the resonance of this in your own coaching? What are the challenges that you face? And Ben, will you be feeding me the questions, or do I have
I
them
certainly
here?
will.
I don't know how I...
No, it's no problem. I will be able to feed those questions. If anyone has any questions, do you want to put them into the chat box? Did we lose Anne somewhere along? Anne, are you still there?
We lost Anne, and I just kept going rather than stop the webinar to try to pick her back up again.
You did amazing there, Karen. You'd never have guessed. Okay, does anyone have... I've not had any questions come through yet, which is very odd.
Well, hang on just a second. I'm getting a ring on my other line. I'm going to see if I can't flash Anne through. That might be dangerous. I'm not going to do that. Let's see, it's right here. Conference.
Okay, I've got a really good question here, actually, Karen. How do I know that I'm a good coach?
Could you repeat the question, please?
How do I know that I'm a good coach?
Oh, how do you know that you're a good coach? I don't know that you ever really know that. I don't know that I ever really know that I'm a good coach. I just give my heart to it, and I trust the relationship between my clients and myself. Here are some markers that I think you can look for. Notice what your clients are saying about you. Notice if they're willing to share their people with you and send you their people. Trust what your clients say about your coaching rather than asking yourself to evaluate it. It's very hard sometimes for us to know the power of our own worth. But if we put our attention over our clients and trust that they're naturally creative, resourceful, and whole, and if they say that they're getting benefit out of the coaching, then they're getting benefit out of the coaching. Trust that. I think that's one way to know.
Okay, thanks for that, Karen.
What other questions do we have?
What is a good opening when you believe that the other person does not believe they are creative and whole?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think that the biggest challenge, in this balance of expectation and sort of spaciousness, the biggest challenge is the lack of permission in the world that we live in to hold ourselves as whole. For me, it comes down to a fundamental choice. Do we see life as whole, or do we see life as broken? So when people are not holding themselves that way, telling them that they are doesn't do any good. It kind of goes like this in my experience. I'm not natural. I'm going to.
Hi, I'm here. I'm
Great.
So sorry. I had a
That's
power
right.
outage.
I'm answering some questions, Anne.
Oh, great.
When it sort of goes like this. You are naturally recorded for social. Oh, no, I'm not. Yes, you are. 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 So that doesn't get you anywhere. So I think the best thing to do is to really drop back a little bit and continue to ask powerful questions and have the client look at where they want to go, what's important to them, and continue to redirect their looking, kind of be in that dance and repoint and redirect their looking so that they can eventually find their way to that center. Arguing with them doesn't do any good. So we're answering some questions in on the webinar.
I so apologize to everyone. It was one of those technical things where I just completely lost power here, but I am back. And I love what you're saying about not arguing with the client, about holding them that way. And since I don't know where you've been, I might use it as an underline of that what we expect for our clients, you know, you probably already talked about this, but the positive point of that, sometimes we hold for them possibilities they don't see yet.
I think that's a big part of holding the power of coaching, is to always challenge ourselves to hold the client bigger than they're holding themselves at any particular point in time, and trust and believe in and actually expect a larger possibility for them.
You know, I love that, and there's it makes me one of my favorite older studies that I love to talk about. It's a Harvard study from the 60s. People are probably familiar with this. They took kids, just normal kids at the beginning of the school year, and they had a control group and another group. And this other group, they told the teachers, bloomers, they're about to have a spike in their intelligence and their ability. And what they found at the end of the year, the teachers having that expectation of the kids, that their performance went up, their grades went up. And we could say, well, that's just, you know, the teachers looked for, and you know, what they wanted to see. But what was also really interesting is that their measurable IQs went up just by the teacher holding that expectation. And I find all of that really, really just absolutely fascinating, and really the coaching. How are we seeing our clients? Are we buying into their story of themselves, or are we really holding this new story that they may have to, you know, fight against for a little while or, you know, bump up against? Well, we just hold it for them.
Thanks. We have time for about one more question, Ben.
Okay. In terms of neuroscience, how does this decision relate to neuroscience?
This decision, to hold them?
To hold both, and to hold the possibility and the intention or the expectation.
Well, you know that we're, you know, sort of the paradox there that, like with the gorilla, we see what we're primed to see, and we often miss things that we're not primed to see, and it's because our visual circuits just work that way. Our expectations work that way. It's easier for the brain. It takes less energy for the brain to do business as usual than it does to really be open to all of these possibilities. So you have that one aspect. So, you know, this not being able to see the gorilla, whatever that is, or the change in the curtain color, we come by that honestly. It's not volitional. It's really part of just how we're designed. On the other side, which this paradox of saying, and then when we hold, you know, when we expect something, how does it change us? One of the things that I find fascinating was the study they did where they told people, they did blind wine taste testing, and they told people that, you know, certain wine was more valuable and that higher rated by the experts and all of that, when really it was a cheap wine. And what they found is that people, the more you told them that the wine was good and more expensive, the more they thought that that was the best wine. And it wasn't just, again, because they, you know, wanted to be cool. It also changed literally the reward center in their brain. It changed the way that they tasted the wine in their brain. So isn't that fascinating? So we have both, you know, both sides of these are more than just sort of on the level of belief. They're operating on a deeper level that has to do with our biochemistry and our very wiring.
And could you talk a little bit about the research that's being done on the left and the right side of the brain and the importance of integration?
Yeah, absolutely. This is what, what we're writing about, Karen and I are writing about right now, is this whole piece about integration. So it used to be that we really thought of the left and right hemispheres as being sort of in charge of various things. And what they're finding now is they in almost everything they do, they really do work together, but that there are certain ways that each sees the world. And I think this also applies with what we're talking about today in naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. So the left hemisphere sees, what kind of looks at one thing at a time, sees the tree in the forest, well, as the right is looking at the whole thing. So the right hemisphere is looking at the whole forest, looking at things like purpose and meaning, holding what we might call in our language at CTI, holding the space, whereas the left is looking at the particles. And that's, again, this paradox that we're talking about. We want to hold the space for people to be their most brilliant, and at the same time, not miss the particles that are showing up that are really important to the client and to the coaching. So
not miss the outcomes and the results and the particular things that the client wants to accomplish.
Absolutely. If all we're holding is the space, people sort of feel like, well, this feels really great, but are we going anywhere? But if as coaches, all we're holding is this outcome and what are you doing and all of that, we miss the real reflective process which leads to sustainable growth. So what Karen and I have been really thinking about a lot lately and writing about is this magical place of dancing. We call it dancing in the hyphen between, in our words, between co and active. But dancing in, if I think about it from a brain perspective, Karen, I would call it dancing in the corpus callosum, between the two hemispheres. The bridge that is connecting us is really more and more what I'm seeing as the key to effectiveness in life and certainly to being a masterful coach.
And because they've heard plenty of me already, Anne, to close, would you give them one particular tip for standing in that place in their coaching? What's the one tip you would give our audience for being able to stand in that masterful middle place of both and?
It's the knowing that neither one is the answer. And the world points us to polarities. The what I would call consensus reality world. And we get into arguments about which is right. Is it better to, be a, drive it home, action-oriented coach, and is that what business needs? Or is it better to really, focus on emotions, touch the soft side, work on learning? And, I think what both you and I would say, Karen, is yes. Yes, and absolutely. Let's let go of the debate about it and look to see the mastery is in the paradox.
So as you leave our presentation this morning, if you can practice letting go of knowing and being in the question, of letting go of deciding and being in the both and, of letting go of having it be one way and instead be in the curiosity and the dance of both. That'll add new dimension and power and richness to your coaching.
I love that. And I'm going to add one more thing real quickly, which is that I think it's helpful to know kind of what your tendency is, because then you know where you may want to lean in order to be more masterful. Lean to the other side. Bring on a bit of the other if you already know you've got one down.
Thank you so much for being with us this morning and being patient with our technological challenges. I love talking with you, and I love dancing with Anne. You can see our full session and the date of it up on the screen. See you there.
Bye.
Right.
Bye. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Just on a final note to everybody, we would love to hear your feedback on our Facebook wall, facebook.com/WBECS. Please jump on there. Thank you very much to Anne and to Karen, and well done to Karen for floating through the technical difficulties. I didn't even know what was happening. It ran so smoothly after that, so well done. Thank you so much for that. Anyhow, guys, I will look forward to you joining us for the next session. Later on today, we have Dr. Marshall Goldsmith is going to be joining us for a session at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. That's 2:30 p.m. Pacific time. And also that's going to be at 10:30 p.m. this evening UK time, and I'll let you work out the rest from there. Anyhow, we would love to have you join us for that session. We are very much approaching capacity for that session, so if you're going to register quickly, because we're probably going to shut it off shortly. Anyhow, without further ado, I'm going to call this session to an end and say once again, thank you so much to Karen and Anne. So thank you so much, ladies. And
Thanks, Ben.
look
Thanks,
forward to joining us.
Dan. Thanks so much.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.